Right. About the course information. So I'm the instructor of this course, and I sit in the Tesla wing of the W department. The lab engineer for this course is Irfan Ullah, and he would be conducting the labs for both sections. There are two lab sections as well, and we have a list of very good TAs with us who would be helping us throughout this course. So let me introduce myself, right? So I completed my PhD in electrical engineering department from France, and I completed my master's in radio communications from France, again, Paris. Before that, I completed my undergrad from UET Lahore. So I am founder director of Advanced Communications Research Lab, where we have three directors. I am one of them. And then along with me, Dr. Naveedul Hassan and Dr. Momin Uppal are the two other directors of Advanced Communications Research Lab. So we are very proud of our publication record as a team. We have published a lot of publications. And my primary area of interest as far as research is concerned is signal processing and machine learning, wireless sensor networks and Internet of Things, line balancing and Industry 4.0, right? So how you balance a line in the industry, radars and MIMO radars, digital wireless communication is the main area of interest because I got my training in that, right? So we have been working on 5Gs and now on 6G communications, wireless propagation, and recently I have also working on reliability analysis or degradation analysis of the lithium-ion batteries. So that is a new area in which I have started working on since my sabbatical in University of Maryland, College Park last year. So now let's talk about things that are of interest to you. So please note that you're allowed to raise your hand as soon as you have any question. Please raise your hands, and Shoaib would let me know that we have a question, and then we would entertain each and every question, right? So we have a classic grading breakup: 10, 20, 30, and 40. So 10% of the quizzes, right? 20% for the homeworks, 30% for the midterm exam, and 40% for the final exam. So we would have around 3 to 4 quizzes, not many. In the classes, I used to have 6 to 7 quizzes, but now in this online session, we would have 3 to 4 quizzes. And then we would have a homework assignment. We would have 5 homework assignments, right? And all of them would be counted. And we would have a midterm exam of 30% and final exam of 40%. So lab policies would be announced separately. Important thing to note is that there would be a separate grade for the lab, right? So you would get a separate grade for the lab and a separate grade for the course. Let's talk about the course syllabus. So we don't have any questions regarding breakup. Very good. So the textbook for the course is Communication Systems by Carlson, right? It is available locally, and it consists of the foundations and the fundamentals of communication systems. So we would start with, starting from the next lecture, we would start with the signals and spectra. That is a review of the signals and systems course that you guys had in the last semester. Then we would start analog modulation, and we would, in the analog modulation, we have typically 2 main chapters. These are big chapters. We would spend a lot of time on these 2 chapters. So we would spend time on linear amplitude modulation, and we would also spend a lot of time on angle modulation, which is frequency modulation and phase modulation. So we'll talk about these in detail, right? We'll spend some time on it. So this was the analog part. So if you can allow me, so these 3, so signals and spectra is generic. So we talk about the basics and the fundamentals. That is the Fourier series and the Fourier transform that form the basics of what we are going to study. And then chapter 4 and chapter 5 would be related to the analog part, right? So these are also called the analog communication. So chapter 4 and chapter 5 are analog communications, right? And then chapter 6 in which we would discuss sampling theorem and quantization. That means how would you convert a signal from uh, from a continuous time domain to a discrete time domain? That would be sampling. And then how would you allocate a finite number of amplitudes to analog signal, which may have infinite number of amplitudes? That is called quantization. This entire process is what is called A to D conversion. And I hope you have heard this word, A to D conversion, right? So you have already used DACs and ADCs in your digital logic, I think, course. And other electronic courses in which you make use of analog to digital conversion and digital to analog conversion. So we would be learning the basics based on the foundation laid down in signals and system course, and we would try to analyze A to D conversion here. And then, so this is the A to D conversion part. So once the signal is converted into digital, so we have to study what is called the digital communications. So remember this code, the name of this course is communication systems, which means that we would try to cover both analog and digital communication systems. But as soon as we talk about digital communication systems, how can you analyze those digital systems, right? So for analysis of the digital systems, you need some foundations on probability and random processes, right? So we would cover sometime 1 or 2 lectures on the review of probability and introduction to random processes, right? Because after that, we want to study what is digital baseband modulation. So we would spend some time on digital baseband modulation, right? And we'd carry out the noise analysis or bit error rate analysis, right? So you'd get to, you would get familiarized with these terms as we progress. So don't worry too much about if you don't know these terms. If you know them already, that is very good. So we would be studying about BER analysis, that is the error probability analysis of digital systems. And if we time permitting, we would also try to study what is the noise analysis in the analog systems, right? But our preference would be the noise analysis in digital systems. So if we got time, we would also study noise analysis of analog systems, right? And finally, we would also try to give 1 lecture or 2 lectures to digital pass band modulation, right? So this is a logical step. Once you know analog modulation, you know digital baseband modulation, you already kind of know in an implicit way what is digital passband modulation, because all you need to do is to convert the signal from the baseband to the passband, right? But its analysis is a different ball game, right? And the analysis of the digital passband modulation is typically covered in another course which is called digital communications. So we would not cover the analysis or the noise analysis of the digital passband modulation, but we would only get an introduction to the digital passband modulation. So this is a course syllabus, and it's very interesting, very fundamental topics, and that you're going to study over the course of this semester. Any questions on this slide? One thing which I would like to emphasize is that you should ask a lot of questions. Right? So the TAs know that I always used to say in the class that no questions are stupid questions. That means whatever you have in your mind, probably tens of other students would have the same question in your mind. And because you would have the courage to ask that question, you would be benefiting a lot of other students as well. So that is one important thing about questions, right? And I would never let your colleagues embarrass you because of your question, right? So no question is a silly question, right? So that is my kind of motto. So moving on to the homework and the quiz schedule, right? So as I've said, we would have 5 homeworks. So homework 1, so I've made a schedule, tentative schedule, and I would try to follow this schedule. So we would have first homework would be out on 25th of September. The second would be out on 9th of October. So you can see there's a lot, almost two weeks gap between these two. In the meanwhile, we would have our first quiz on 13th of October. Homework 3 would be out on 23rd of October. The second quiz would be on 29th of October. The tentative date for the midterm exam is 5th November 2020, followed by homework 4 and 5 on 6th and 20th November, respectively. We would have our third quiz on 1st December 2020. And there would another quiz and you would be participating in this quiz throughout this semester, and that would be based on the polling questions that I would be conducting during the online teaching, right? So that would be quiz 4. So for example, if I take 10 polls, that's just an example. So I would, for example, count 8 of those polls as quiz 4, right? So if you have given 7 correct answers, so you would have 7 out of 8 correct answers in that quiz, for example, right? And one quiz would be dropped as well, right? So this is to make sure that we have this redundancy, and if God forbid somebody is unable to attend all the classes, right? So he's not penalized, he or she is not penalized based on this quiz 4, right? So we would have these 3 announced quizzes, and quiz 4 would be based on the polling questions that those would be conducted throughout this course, right? So that would also keep you somewhat on toes, so that they can be any question that can pop up during the class, and you would be able to answer that question.
Sir, there is a question in the chat box.
Okay, let me see the chat box. Okay. There's a question in the chat box. Shweb, can you please read for me?
Sure, sir. So the person Junaid Jamshed is asking that will we be revising different probability distributions as well?
So we would have a complete review of probability and random processes. Everything that is required in this course would be covered in class, right? So although I know that you have taken some courses on probability theory, but we would be reviewing the probability theory and the random processes part that is required for this course. So yes, the answer is yes, we would be reviewing the probability theory. We would not be emphasizing on all the probability distributions. We would be only focusing on the distributions that are required in the course, right? But a generic review, a quick review of different distributions, yes, that would be included.
Sir, someone has raised his hand. Saif, please unmute your mic. Please ask the question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Ji, walaikum assalam, Saif.
So will you take the polling questions on LMS?
No, on Zoom session. During the Zoom
okay, session. Sir, all right.
Very good. So we would have 2 polling questions today, but those would not be counted towards so just to get an experience of how polling would work. So this would be first time for me as well, right? So today would be a kind of a first time trial of how the polling works in Zoom for me, right? So let's start with the history of communication systems, a little history, brief history of communication systems. So in the beginning, when we call communication, that means that we are trying to, we are talking about transfer of information from one point to another. And that information should be of the form of electrical signals, right? And that is why it is under the ambit of electrical engineering that you're taking a course in communication systems, right? Because we are talking about communications of the electrical signals. Right? So that is one of the key points. The first communication system that was ever developed was a telegraph system, by the way, and that was a digital communication system in which Samuel Morse developed a code, right, in which we can transmit different letters, right, and that code was based on dots and dashes. Right? It was a binary communication system. So every alphabet in the English literature was coded in terms of dots and dashes, and it was transmitted over a wired network, that over a copper cable, right? So it, as I've said, it was a binary communication system, right, based on dashes and dots. So there were two inventions which helped uh, for this telegraph invention, and one was the invention of the battery by Volta in 1799, and then demonstration of electromagnetism by Oersted in 1820. Right, so you know the father of electromagnetism is James Clerk Maxwell, right, who proved in theory that electromagnetic radiations can propagate, right? So, but demonstration comes after the theory, of course. So then came a transatlantic cable that was put in the Atlantic Ocean, right? And based on that transatlantic cable, the telegraph system connected United States with Europe. Right? Back then, the travel time across Atlantic by ships was almost 10 days. That means if you want to send a message to Europe through ship, the easiest and the fastest possible method was through ship, and that used to took 10 days. Telegraphy reduced the communication times to only few hours, right, with a throughput of 2 words per minute. Right, so you can see how telegraphy changed, and that was only 2 centuries ago. So you would find out, and you would probably notice that the progress in the field of communications is kind of exponential progress compared to any other compared to any other field, right? So telegraph services were used till 2006 in USA and till 2013 in India. I don't know how many of you have used this telegraph services, but I'm pretty sure that your parents must have used this telegraph services in Pakistan. It used to be called tar. Tar bolte the, iska tar aaya, right? So that was a telegraph that used to come. Right. So then came the era of voice telephony. And at this point, I would have to initiate a poll. So I don't know how many of you know the name of this person, right? So why I cannot see the polls here.
Sir, Shoaib will perhaps be able to see it because he's the host.
Okay, Shoaib, can you see the polling? Yes, he has launched.
And sir, I will now request to leave because I have a class.
No problem.
So,
thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Office.
So please participate in the poll. Right? Identify the scientist on this slide 11. Shiv, can you please end the poll? Right, very good, very good. So most of you have guessed it right. Right, so he is Alexander Graham Bell. He is the founder of telephone, right? He's called Alexander Graham Bell. Okay, very good. So in this way, we would try to have any questions. I would put the question on the slide, for example, and I would take the answers from you during the polls, and you can participate in the polls. That's a very easy way of taking questions sometimes I would just ask questions based only for your knowledge check, right? Knowledge check as well. So in 1874, Alexander Graham Bell said, if I could make a current of electricity vary in its intensity, precisely as the air varies in density during the production of sound, right, I should be able to transmit speech telegraphically, right? So his idea was that since voice already propagates, so you can hear a voice from a person because the intensity of the air changes based on whatever the person is saying. So his idea was that if I can vary the electrical parameters, that is current and the voltages, in a way a sound signal is, then we should be able to transmit it and regenerate a replica of that at the destination end. That was his idea, and eventually led to the invention of what is called the telephone. The invention of the telephone enabled dissemination of the natural speech directly over the telephone wires. Right? So that was a marvelous invention, and you can see it was done in 1874, not very long ago. Right? So 1874 is not too long ago. And then he founded what is called Bell Labs, and that Bell Labs is still contributing and contributes towards modern day communication systems. So that is something which is highly regarded, right? So the people who work in Bell Labs are highly established people, right? And then as you have to transmit information from one point to another, right? So you need to develop a circuit, right? And exchanges, right? So so what happened is that your home, for example, would be connected to an exchange. Same goes with another person whose home would be connected to that exchange, and a person sitting in that exchange in the early days would have to manually switch the circuit or connect the circuit, right? So you would form a circuit from your home to the exchange, and then he would connect your line with the destination line, right? And that's how the communication started to work, right? And manual exchanges were prevalent 3 or 4 centuries ago, right? And then came the era of the electrical exchanges. But the number of lines, of course, increased from 8, which they started off with 8 lines. That means only 8 people can connect to each other simultaneously, right? So you had 8 lines, but there were lots of phone connected, right? So that was how the exchanges worked in the early days. Then came the era of radio communications. Right? So radio means so there's a radio frequency, right? And whenever we say radio communication, we imply that the medium for which we are talking about is the air, right? So that is wireless communication, in other words, right? So there is no wire involved, right? So early telegraph systems used copper wire as their communication medium. Radio communications, on the other hand, is a form of wireless communication in which you can propagate the signals in the air, right? So again, the foundations of this radio communication are present in the field of electromagnetism. So Maxwell gave his theory of Maxwell equations, which proved that, and you would be learning Maxwell equation and Poynting theorem in the course field and wave electromagnetics. Those concepts found the basics of communication, that these electromagnetic waves can propagate, right? And if those electromagnetic waves have the message, that means a speech signal, so you can just transmit your signal from one point to another without any medium, without a medium that is a wire, in a wireless medium, right? So that is how wireless communication started off working, right? So in this slide, I am sharing a brief history of wireless communications. So very early communications in the ancient times, right? That was also wireless communications. and the medium or the carrier used for those for that type of communication were pigeons, right? So pigeons used to deliver messages from one point to another, right? So that was ancient communication. And then came Maxwell in 1864. He gave the theory behind which an experimental validation of Henrik Hertz proved that you can transmit from one point to another. And Henrik Hertz demonstration was 1 meter, up to few meters at most. Then Oliver Lodge did an experiment, and he communicated from one point to another up to 150 meters. By the way, Henrik Hertz thought that since the propagation is so bad in the area of interest, in the band of interest, and by the band of interest, he meant 0 to 4 kilohertz, in which your sound waves or human voice is centered around. So typically, a human, if you take a Fourier transform of a human voice signal directly, that would be the most of the energy lie in 0 to 4 kilohertz. And Henrik Hertz believes because the propagation is so bad, wireless propagation is so bad in this frequency band, we would hardly see any wireless communication system, right? But he was so wrong, because then came the concept of modulation, in which you can do the frequency translation, and you can shift your signal from one frequency band or from the baseband to a pass band which lie in frequency that is much higher than the baseband. And I'm sure you have seen this concept or talked about or analyzed this concept in your signals and systems course. We would review that in this course as well, right? So we would start with the review of signals and systems in the next lecture. And frequency translation is one of the important concepts that is widely used in communication systems. And then eventually Marconi demonstrated a fully commercial system, right? In 1897 and 1901, and that is why Marconi is also called an inventor of radio, right? So we call Marconi as the inventor of radio. But Marconi's demonstration was point-to-point radio, right? From one point to another, right? David Sarnoff was a pioneer of point to multi-point communication. That means if you have a broadcast radio that is transmitting to lots of users, right? Like the radio or FM radio still used to is work. So you have one broadcast and lots of users in the city are hooked up with that broadcast, right? So that is called point to multi-point communications. And with these inventions and with this improvement, wireless broadcasting started in 1920s. The first broadcast systems were AM, amplitude modulation systems. And because of the success of AM, in which you can transmit news, songs, entertainment over the radio, the Federal Communication Commission of United States, they started regulating the spectrum. That means they said that the spectrum in which you can transmit is ours, is of the government's, and you are not allowed to transmit in any band what you like. You can only transmit in a band if you have a license to transmit in that band. That is called regulation, right? So you probably know that we have a regulatory body called Pakistan Telecommunication Authority, or PTA, which give licenses to different wireless service providers, like for example, Mobilink, Zong, Ufone, right? Wired, all of these wireless service providers, they purchase band or frequencies from the regulatory authority of any country, right, in which they want to transmit. And if you transmit in those bands, and that is an offense, and you can be arrested on that, provided that your transmit power is greater than a threshold. So you cannot transmit in any band whatsoever with large power. And if you do, you're causing interfering. You're interfering their license band or spectrum, and then you can be arrested for that crime. The evolution of the wireless communication continued, and E.H. Armstrong invented what is called the frequency modulation, right? And he proved to himself that FM is immensely superior to AM. He fought lengthy battles, but he was not listened to. And he was so disheartened that he committed suicide in 1954. However, stereo FM, right after his death, overtook AM in 1960s, and his wife was given credit for a lot of patents that Armstrong filed, right? And she won a lot of suits as well. So FM now is so prevalent that even now it's so robust that you have an FM radio in almost every car. And if you want to listen to or tune to some channel, you can you still connect to your FM, right? AM is gone now, right? So the AM broadcast still exists in certain parts of the world, but not prevalent. FM transmission is still prevalent. So that was the Armstrong vision, that he knew that it is much superior in terms of performance, and he was right. And then came advances in communication. So these advances were mainly in communication electronics, right, which enabled high speed and a fast adoption of communication systems, right? So people developed better amplifiers, low noise amplifiers, filters in circuits, which were better. They had a better Q factor, right? People developed, Armstrong developed super heterodyne receiver, which was a one single receiver that can be used for both FM and AM, right? Then video broadcasting using stereo FM started in 1960s, right? And then came in late 1980s, the era of internet, right? And cellular communication started started to enjoy exponential growth since 1988, right? So when we were studying in our undergrad, not everybody used to have a mobile phone, right? You would be amazed to listen to that. And nobody used to have a smartphone. So the people who used to have Nokia 3310, they used to be very proud of themselves that they have a phone with them, right? In which they can talk to anybody sitting from their rooms or talking to everybody. So this was, we have lived through that era of exponential growth in communications. And this really is an exponential growth. No other technology has improved this much over time, right? And it started off with voice communication, then came data communication, right? And now you know that some of you would be attending this lecture over a wireless communication, right? And using a data connection. So that is, so the technology has really developed, right? And thanks to these founding fathers, which were which we developed, which laid the groundwork for us, right? Okay, so people talked about communication, but nobody talked about noise, right? So there was a scientist who started working on the noise, right? And Shoaib, can you launch the second poll? How many of you know this scientist? Please show the results. Right, and the majority of you have guessed it wrong. So we know that the noise, the thermal noise has a Gaussian distribution, but this scientist is not Gauss. And even the second best guess is also wrong, right? So his name is Harry Nyquist, right? And he developed, he talked about the analysis of noise, right? So still 1920s, there was no formal theory of signal transmission. In 1927, Nyquist extended the work of the pioneers and developed a mathematical explanation of the thermal noise. He he suggested that we can have designated pulses for band limited channels, right? And he developed a theory of which is called the zero ISI transmission, which is used to this date. And you would study zero ISI transmission in this course, right? He published a paper in 1928. The topic was certain topics in telegraph transmission theory, which kind of implied Nyquist sampling theorem, which said that if you sample a signal at a sampling rate, which is at least twice of the maximum frequency content in that particular signal, you should be able to recover that signal back, right? Precisely. So that was a contribution of Nyquist, followed by father of information theory, Claude Shannon, who wrote a landmark paper titled A Mathematical Theory of Communication in 1948, which is still regarded as the foundational work on information theory, right? And he said that he talked about his work was purely theoretical, and he said that if you have a band limited channel, then the maximum amount of data that you can transmit over that band limited channel, which has a bandwidth of b hertz, is given by this equation. This is a very famous equation, but it has a lots of math behind it. But this is so easy to understand. He called that data, the maximum data that you can transmit over the channel, as the channel capacity, typically denoted as C. And he said that C is equals to B log base 2 of 1 plus signal to noise ratio. And this base 2 is because we are talking about bits here, right? We are talking about binary transmission here, right? Bits also mean binary digits, right? So it's a short of binary digits. So you're talking about binary digits here, right? And the maximum data rate over a band limited channel that you can transmit is this, right? So you see there's an emergence of noise here. So the signal to noise ratio is one of the parameter which keeps a check on the maximum data rate, right? So that is related to the fidelity of your communication, how robust your communication system is. If the thermal noise in your channel is so high that it overpowers your signal power, then your channel capacity would be close to zero, right? So not only it depends on the bandwidth, right? So typically people take synonyms, and it is in most cases, if you have a high signal to noise ratio, larger bandwidth is synonym to a higher data rate, right? So whenever you talk about to a signal internet service provider, and you say that I need a higher data rate, he would say, okay, let me increase your bandwidth, right? And an increased bandwidth should result in a higher transmission rate, right? That is fine. But there's another thing which is called signal to noise ratio. If the signal that is being transmitted degrades so much that it is below the noise floor, then even a higher bandwidth would not be able to do anything, right? So that is, these are the kind of the history of communications. So let me move on to some of the basics that we want to cover today. The basics of communication, all very simple stuff, right? Very generic stuff, right? So Claude E. Shannon is called the father of information theory, but what is information exactly, right? What is information? So you listen to news, you get some information there, right? If there was an era where every home used to have a newspaper in their home early in the morning, right? Some of the homes still get the newspaper, the hard copy of the newspaper, where your elderly people would be reading those newspapers. So that was also a source of information, right? That is transmitted in a classical manner, where information is published somewhere, transmitted door to door, and you get access to information, right? But now with the advent of these new technologies, you can get the information right away. You just switch on your TV, right? And at the back end, there would be some communication system that would be working on the electrical transmission of the information, right? From one point to another, right? So that is, so information is information, right? Information is any meaningful that you want to transmit, right? in the words of Shannon, it is the reciprocal of the inverse probability distribution function. That is a field in communication system. But some of you might go there and study what is information theory. Information is something that is, and that you would have experienced from your noise, from these noisy media channels as well. If there is uncertainty about something or some news, if the news is less probable, that is a big news, right? If the probability of any news which is high, is it not any news rather, right? So if you have randomness in the information, only then the information is information, right? And your information is inversely proportional to the probability of the happening of that event, right? So that is theoretically speaking. Here we would not be going into the information theoretical concept, right? Here we would say that if we have a message, right, and we want to communicate that message from one point to another, right? So we would make use of these communication systems so that you can transmit it from one point to another, and at the receiving end, you should be able to generate the replica, right? An acceptable replica of the message at the destination. By acceptable, the thing that is implied is that you can never generate an exact replica of what was said. There would always be some noise in it, right? So the things, the voice you are listening at your end, I hope that is an acceptable replica of what I'm saying here in sitting in my room, right? And you are able to understand and comprehend what is being said, right? There would still be some noise in it. There would still be some thermal noise in it, right? So information is a generic word, right? So we would try to clarify what is information. So we would be using information and message interchangeably, right? So for us, for communication system, information is something that needs to be transmitted. It's a message that is going to be transmitted from one point to another. And that message would be of the form of electrical signal. In other words, for communication systems, for EE380, the information is a signal that you want to transmit. Eventually, that is a signal, and that you had come across in your signals and system course. So you want to transmit a signal from one point to another, right? So how can we classify signals? I hope that you have studied about classification of signals. So how can we classify signals? You can have signals which are discrete time. And if we have discrete time signals, then we would have also what? Continuous time signals, right? Thank you. So we would have continuous time signals. That is one way of classification. Then you can classify these signals. For example, you have an analog signal. And you have a digital signal, for example. Can somebody in the audience define what is an analog signal?
So regardless of at what time we sample the signal, we will get a value.
So you say that analog signal has to do with this axis, this time axis?
It has to be, there has to be no gap between there has to be no gap in the information.
So you're saying that analog signal is a continuous time signal?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be, but if you it could be discretized, but it doesn't, like if you sample it at any given point in time,
Let me
it'll give you
let me sample this. Would this be an analog signal or a digital signal?
this would be a DT.
This would be discrete time. Would it be a digital signal?
It depends on like how you transmit it. Like, are you transmitting it as a continuous whole, or are you sampling it?
No, we are not talking about transmission here. We're just because we are talking about signals here. There's no transmission here, right? How we are trying to learn how can we classify what is the difference between an analog signal and a digital signal. So one of course one aspect is this time axis, right? So you have two axes here, right? So you have this time axis and then you have this amplitude. Let me call this V of t. Suppose this is V of t, right? An analog signal is a signal which can take any value, which can take infinite value, in other words, right? So if this sample, be it discretized or not, right, that is another axis. But when you talk about the value, if this V of t, the amplitude of this signal can be from anything out of these on the y-axis, if it can take infinite values, then that signal would be an analog signal, right? It can be discrete time and continuous time. So you can have continuous time analog signal. You can also have discrete time analog signal, right? The discrete time analog signal would be samples of this signal, this analog signal in which you have sampled, but these samples can take any values. In order for this signal to be digital, हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा? How can
we will have to quantize the signal. We'll have to give limited values on the y-axis of V of t, make it a digital signal.
Exactly.
Convert it from discrete to digital.
In order to make this signal to be a digital signal, this y-axis needs to be quantized, what is called, Salman ने जैसे बताया, quantize भी करना पड़ेगा आपको, right? That means you must have some finite number of values or a finite set from which this signal can take values, right? Right. So I hope I made it clear, right? So sorry about that. So I made it clear that you can have signals classified as continuous time and discrete time, and then in continuous time signals you can have a continuous time digital signal, right? So you have, for example, this signal, right? It's a binary signal, for example. This is a continuous time signal, right? This is defined for all values of t on the x-axis. You're not talking about samples here, right? But it is a digital signal, and binary signal is a signal in which the finite set contains only two values: one value of this amplitude A and the other value of this amplitude 0, right? Okay, very good. So messages can be classified as analog, right? And a physical quantity that varies with time, usually in a smooth or a continuous fashion, right, is called analog signal. And then we have talked about fidelity. Fidelity describes how close is the received signal to the original signal, right? So if you now this fidelity terms is implying that there is some communication that has been done, right? But when we are talking about classification of the signals, there is no communication, right? It's just the definition of a signal. And then you have a digital signal in which you have a finite set of discrete elements, right, out of which that can take the, so your digital signal would take values from a finite set of values, right? And when we talk about fidelity of digital signals, then because you have finite set of elements, then you talk about the degree of the accuracy. For example, for binary systems, you would talk about what is called the error rate. Error rate would be how many bits in 1 million bits were received in an erroneous manner. And so that would be a measure of the fidelity for the digital signal. For analog signals, the measure of the fidelity would be what is called the signal to noise ratio, right? Let's take examples, right? So you have the signal which is varying with time, right? So this is continuous time here, right? And this is an analog signal, right? Continuous time analog signal. Then this is a continuous time digital signal. And if the set is comprises of only 2 values, then that kind of a signal would be called a binary signal, right? So this would be an example of a binary signal. Right? Any question? I think this is pretty straightforward. Shoaib, please keep an eye on if somebody raises his or her hand, please let me know, right?
Sure, sir.
Okay. So what would be the elements of communication system, right? So you would have a transmitter, right? Of course. The transmitter would do what, right? For example, you want to transmit a certain message. You would first do some kind of coding, right? If the transmission is digital, you would do some kind of coding, right? For example, if the message is too large or it has a lot of redundancy, so there is something in the chat box. So let me see if there's something in the chat box. Okay, sure, I can. So the question is, what is the difference between discrete time signals and a digital signal, right? So we can that can be explained from here. So this signal is a digital signal, but it's a continuous time signal. If you sample it, this signal is an analog signal, right? But it's also continuous. Both of these are continuous time signal. If you sample it with a sampling interval of TS seconds, right? For example, you take this sample. This signal would now be called a discrete time signal. The signal is still analog. So this is discrete time. So these bars are discrete time. These bars are discrete time analog signal. Now, if a digital signal is sampled in time, so that would be a discrete time digital signal, right? So for example, you sample it here. Now these samples can only take finite values. So a digital signal would be a signal whose amplitude, right? Whose amplitude takes finite value, right? And discrete time signal is a signal whose time axis is discrete in nature. Does this answer your question, Tuba? Can you please repeat your question, please? I'm really sorry. I couldn't hear you. You can type your question, please.
Yes.
And Shoaib, you would please read it out for me.
Sure, sir.
So we'll continue with our discussion, right? And in the meanwhile, we'll answer the question from Tuba. So we would have these 3 major elements of a communication system. We would have a transmitter, right? So transmitter's main function would be to process the signal or convert into a shape that can be transmitted over the channel. And so you would have this TX box. TX I'm representing as a transmitter. Right? So whatever medium, whatever kind of communication system you have, for example, FM communication system. So the role of the transmitter would be to make the information or the message and convert into a signal that can be transmitted into the channel. Right? So you would have this channel. So transmitter would convert, for example, you have a speech signal and your system is a digital communication system in which transmit pulses. So your signal, for example, this transmitter would do what? It would first sample your signal, it would quantize, it would convert into a digital signal, and then it would modulate your signal or represent different bits through a signal that can be transmitted. For example, one manifestation of modulating would be like this on-off keying, in which a digital signal, for example, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1 is encoded, where 0 is encoded through this pulse, 1 is encoded by transmitting nothing. Again, 0 is encoded by transmitting a pulse, 1 is encoded by transmitting nothing. Right? So this is one example of coding. Right? So that's what we mean by coding. So a transmitter has to code the information. In what shape? In a shape that can be transmitted over the channel. Right? So that was a binary baseband transmission, for example. Right? If we are talking about amplitude modulation, right? So we'd learn that amplitude modulation would convert a signal which you want to transmit into a shape that can be transmitted using a particular type of modulation. And once it is transmitted into the channel would do what? Channel would attenuate that signal. It would add noise. There would be some distortion. And because if it is a wireless transmission, there would be a lot of interference in it. Why? Because everybody is transmitting into the same channel. Right? In the same channel, in the same mobile phone you guys have, you would have a radio for Bluetooth. You would have a radio for Wi-Fi. You would have 2 SIMs or 3 SIMs or 1 SIM for cellular communications. Right? So all of these radios, they would be transmitting signals in the same environment. That means you would always have interference. Right? So the channel would do what? Channel causes, add noise, it attenuates your signal, it distorts your signal, it adds interference to it. Right? And then of course, once that noisy signal is received, at the receiver end, you try to detect your signal or decode your signal. Right? For example, you have transmitted this and you receive this. Right? From this received signal, you would try to decode what was your message. Right? So you would say, this is above a threshold, so I call it 0. This is below the threshold, I'll call it 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Right? And in this case, for example, you have decoded correctly. If the noise is such, right, that this signal is received like this, you would make an error here, right? And that would be termed as, right, loss of fidelity or an error here. G. Shoaib, do you have a question in the chat box?
Yes, so I have 2 questions. First question is from Tuba. She is asking that can we say that the digital signal is a continuous signal with finite amplitude? So she could please answer this question first.
Yes, you can have a digital signal. You can have a digital signal which is a continuous time signal, right? So whenever we talk about continuous signal, time is implied, of course, because typically time is the independent variable. So yes, this is a digital signal. It is a continuous time signal, and it has finite, it takes values. The amplitude of this signal take values from a finite set, right? I would call it like this. So answer to this is yes. However, you can sample this continuous time signal and the resulting signal is still a digital. So these pulses, these red pulses, is still a digital signal, but it's also a discrete time signal. So these red pulses are discrete time digital signals, and this blue pulses are continuous time digital signal. So whenever you talk about digital, we are talking about its amplitude being taking values from a set of finite values. I hope that answers your question.
And the next question is from Jamshed. He is asking that can you please explain what happens in the channel?
Very good. I just explained that in the here, right? So the channel does what? Channel, of course, whenever you transmit into the channel, it would attenuate your signal. Whenever you transmit, so you see that in your everyday life as well, right? Suppose you and your friends are carrying out are hanging out, and you are experiencing social distancing. You're following the SOPs, right? And if your friend has really low voice, you would not be able to hear him properly, hear him or her. So that means as you increase the distance of the transmitter and the receiver in a wireless channel, the signal is going to attenuate, right? So the first thing that a channel does is it attenuates your signal, right? Amplitude को कम कर देता है, ठीक है, आपके सिग्नल. ना सिर्फ ये attenuate करता है, not only it attenuates, it also add noise to it, ठीक है. So whenever you receive a signal at the receiving end, you would have a receiver that would be made of a circuit. So any circuit, if the signal comes across a circuit, it would experience what is called the thermal noise, right? So because in the medium you would have electrons moving around, right? And you would have a certain noise in it, right? That is called thermal noise, right? Distortion is a kind of attenuation, right? Because of, for example, if you receive two replicas of a signal, right? So in addition to attenuation, your signal might be distorted, right? For example, you have this transmitter, this is a receiver. So you have a direct line of sight. This line of sight path would experience interference, but you receive from another path. And your received signal here is sum of two signals, for example, S1 of t plus S2 of t. Now this signal would be attenuated for sure, but it would also be distorted. Why? Because it is something else. It may be something else that you don't have transmitted, right? Because it is sum of two signals, right? And depending upon the phase of those signals, you can get really different signals from which you have transmitted. That thing is called distortion. And of course, interference, because you are transmitting, all of us are transmitting into the same channel, and that would cause interference as well. I hope that answers your question.
So there is another question in the chat box. So Rimsha is asking that in a discrete time signal, do the finite values for amplitude need to be whole numbers or not?
May or may not be whole numbers, right? Whole numbers भी हो सकते हैं, नहीं भी हो सकते हैं. It doesn't matter. सही है? Okay. So we have talked about communications. Communication is information transfer. This course is about communications. We'll not be delivering newspapers. We're talking about transmission of electrical signals. So this is the diagram that I wanted to come to before the end of this lesson. So this is a block diagram of an entire communication system, right? So things we have studied already. So for example, you have text and audio messages that you want to transmit. So you would have a source encoder at the transmitting end. For example, your video messages or text, your images have a lot of redundancy typically in it, right? So you see that the nearby pixels are almost guaranteed to have the similar values. So you can design an encoder which can reduce the redundancy of the signal. In other words, it can reduce the size of the signal, right? So that is called source encoding. Right? Another kind of encoding would be, for example, you have an audio signal and then you want to transmit it, convert into this message signal M of t. This message signal needs to be a digital signal, for example. So you need to convert the source encoding would do what? It would convert this analog signal into a digital signal that can be transmitted into the channel. So this M of t is called the message signal. right? For example, bits, B1, B2, B3, right? A sequence of bits. And then the transmitter takes the input. This message is input of this transmitter. And then this transmitter would convert this message into something which can be transmitted over the channel. And we are calling this as S of T, right? So transmitter, for example, is doing what? Is doing modulation. For example, this transmitter is amplitude modulation. And the input message is a speech signal. So it would do what? It would multiply your input signal with a cosine of omega naught t, for example, right? So depending upon what kind of transmitter it is, it would perform different kind of functions. After performing the functions, you would get what? You would get a signal that can be transmitted into the channel. So you transmit into the channel would do its stuff. It attenuates the signal, right? For example, if you have transmitting this pulse, this channel would attenuate it, right? So after transmitting into the channel, it gets multiplied with A, where A would be less than 1. And as a result, it would be attenuated, for example, right? And some noise would be added, right? For example, this is a thermal noise. This would be added into it. So this channel would add noise in it, right? And after the signal has passed through the channel, it is no more the same signal. S of t was transmitted, but now it is S hat of t. That means it is a different signal, right? And from this estimate, it's also called the estimate of what was transmitted. From this estimate of the transmitted signal, this receiver would try to demodulate your signal. It would try to recover your message signal back, right? So this would be an estimate of M of t, your message signal. Right? And finally, you would have a source decoder, which would do what? Which would do the inverse operation of the source encoding to convert your signal into what was transmitted, what was meant. For example, image or audio or a video, whatever it is, right? So encoder would convert the message. Let me erase all the ink. Encoder would convert the message signal message into a message signal or bits. The transmitter would convert the bits into a signal that can be transmitted into the channel. That is called the transmitted signal. Channel would introduce noise, distortion, and interference. Receiver would receive the estimate or a noisy transmitted signal, and it would try to convert that noisy transmitted signal into a message signal, right? And the decoder would convert the message signal into the original message, right? An example would be, for example, a microphone. So microphone converts the speech into bits. It gets transmitted over the channel, and it gets received from the speaker. At the receiver end, it would be first receive that signal, right? It would have converted that signal into bits. That bits would have passed through a source decoding, and what you are hearing is my voice from coming out of your speakers. So that can be one example of a communication systems. And the focus of this class would not be source encoding, would not be source decoding. We would assume that we have a signal to be transmitted, right? We would call it transmitted signal or a message signal. That then we would have a transmitter that would convert that message signal into a transmitted signal, right? And then we would assume a certain type of channel. The channel we would talk about in this course is called AWGN channel, additive white Gaussian noise channel. We'll talk about that in the later part of this course. And the receiver would try to convert the received signal back into the message signal. Any questions about this thing before we call off the meeting today?
Sir?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between noise and interference? Is it mainly contextual? Yeah. Is there a specific, is there a way to quantify it?
Right. Noise and interference are two completely different things. Noise is, the source of the noise is the thermal, are the electrons present in your receiver circuit. They contribute to the thermal noise. Every receiver, every circuit, every transmitter would have some thermal noise present in it. Right? So whatever it receives, it would add some noise on top of it. That is noise. Interference is the contribution of the other signals which are non-intended, right? So this is your transmission path. This is your intended signal, right? Interference is a signal that was intended for your friend talking on a mobile phone at the same time. And because the signal is transmitted over a mobile channel or wireless channel, that signal would also be received by your mobile station. And for your mobile station, that signal would be interfering signals. That is non-intended, unintended signal. And if that exists in the same band, that would cause a lot of problem, right? So in order to cater for interference, we apply filters, right? And if the filters are not ideal, you can have out of band interference.
Okay.
Any other questions?
सर
जी
सर ये जो चैनल का सारा रोल है, इसका मकसद क्या होता है? ये नॉइस इंट्रोड्यूस करवाने का, डिस्टॉर्शन का और इंटरफेरेंस का, ये मतलब हम खुद ऐड करवा रहे हैं ना, तो इसका मकसद क्या होता है? इसका क्या
तो हम ऐड कर रहे हैं, बिल्कुल सही। थैंक्स फॉर, इट्स अ वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन। देखें, एक चीज होती है रियलिटी और एक चीज होती है उसकी मॉडलिंग, राइट? आपने हैव यू टेकन द कोर्स ऑफ इंजीनियरिंग मॉडल्स? ठीक है, मोस्ट ऑफ यू वुड हैव टेकन द इंजीनियरिंग मॉडल्स, जिसके अंदर यू डिफरेंट फिजिकल सिस्टम्स आर मॉडल्ड यूजिंग फर्स्ट ऑर्डर एंड सेकंड ऑर्डर डिफरेंशियल इक्वेशंस। ठीक है, इसी तरीके से noise would exist in actual systems, would always exist. In order to do the analysis of the system, we introduce some noise or add some noise in your transmitted signal in terms of modeling. So we model our system like this, that we have a transmitter, we have a channel H of T, signal would get convolved with the channel, and there would be some noise that gets added. This noise would have a distribution that is called the Gaussian distribution, right? So this is called modeling of the system, right? That model is based on years and years of experimental validation. Okay? Why we call noise to be a Gaussian noise? Because we have observed that the thermal noise that is typically added at the receiver side is typically has a Gaussian distribution, right? And Gaussian distribution is also called the normal distribution, and it is called the normal distribution because it fits a lot of normal or nature, lot of phenomena that happens in the nature, and it's also called the normal distribution. Does this answer your question? I hope it does. Any other questions? By the way, those who want to leave the class, they can leave, and those who want to who have questions and want to engage in few questions, let me stop the recording here.